reconvening to open session for the Calisto Region Unified School District regular meeting of the Board of Trustees at 6:05 p.m. Please be advised that a recording might be made at the direction of the board and that the recording might capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. We are continuing to item 4.2, report of actions taken in closed session. The board voted to uphold the suspended expulsion for student 22-01, and the vote was 5-0. Attendance roll call. President Lopez-Jones here. Clerk Robert Allen.
Here.
Trustee Maxfield.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez. Trustee Alcachet. Thank you all. And if you can join me for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4.5, District Mission Statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. Item 5.1, Public Business from the floor. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that is not on the agenda. Without taking action or entering into a dialogue with the public, board members might briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter might be referred to administration. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any comments from the floor? Thank you for being here. Item 6.1, recognition, student representative. The Board of Trustees recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement, or who have made significant contributions to any kind to the district. The following individual will be recognized. 21-22 student representative Shannon Williams will be recognized for doing an outstanding job in her role as a student representative to the Board of Trustees. Shannon, in the name of the Board of Trustees, I would like to thank you for all your service to this body, and we appreciate your thoughtfulness and your honesty and directness when you were giving us messages and the opinions of the students that you represent. We wish you the best in your next academic journey, and thank you again for being with us all this year. And if anybody has anything else to say to Shannon?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And we have Valeria.
Shannon, I just want to say I've worked with 17 different board members, and you've done an outstanding job of getting your report in on time. It has required almost no editing whatsoever, which is unusual. And I also appreciate that you represented the students so well, so thank you. We have a sweatshirt for Shannon. As it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, presentations. We begin with the Out Valley Family Center's services.
I want to introduce Jenny Ocon and Marcela Rodriguez. I greatly appreciate the partnership with the Out Valley Family Center, and so she's here tonight to present on the services that were provided this year as well as the services going into next year. So welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Jenny O'Cone. I'm the Executive Director for the Yucca Valley Family Centers, and with me is Marcela Rodriguez. She's our Education Program Manager. We're really happy to be with you this evening. For those of you who might not know, we have been providing services on the school campuses here in Calistoga for 23 years. We actually we were founded because of the Calistoga School District through a Healthy Start grant long time ago. And fast forward to now, and I think we can say that that Healthy Start grant has been very impactful for students and for the community. We wanted to just share with you a little bit of a recap. We're focusing on what we were able to do as a result of the joint memorandum of understanding with the district this past year, and what we're planning to do in the coming year ahead. As we were putting this presentation together, I was thinking, actually, we could take a deeper dive on a lot of topics, but we can maybe save that for another night because there's a lot that we could share. So for now, I'm going to let Marcela start with the first part, and then I'll come on the second part. Next slide. Good evening.
A recap of this past year with our education-based mental health services and restorative services. At the elementary, we provided or connected 77 students in participation with services, and at the high school, including Palisades, we had 63. Currently on our wait list at the elementary school, we have 6 going into summer, and then at the high school, we have 16, which should change tomorrow after we confirm some summer services and assign at our core meeting. For restorative services, we have 2 circles at the elementary school for the first and second graders from November until the end of the school year. At the high school, we continue to provide restorative circles or services on an as-needed basis, and we helped with the restorative conference regarding the senior prank towards the end of the school year, as well as with their juvenile diversion services. Towards the end of the school year, we did see an uptake in the need for services in mental health, and getting that one-time support for all day and add 2 more days really helped address our wait list and the immediate needs of our students. Our core meetings run smoothly every other week for each school site, where we discuss cases that are referred to us and assign out on an as-needed basis.
It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We apologize for that. Our equipment is all right.
We have it on our...
We have it.
We're following along.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. The audience isn't sure.
Okay. And as a recap for our family support and education services, for the Spanish literacy Plaza Comunitaria program, there were 5 participants. For ESL, where child care was provided, at the elementary school, there were 7 participants, and for our construction training program, there were 15.
Marcelo, before you go, what was the construction training program? Just curious.
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Napa Valley Adult Education, as well as Napa Valley College. Napa Valley Community Foundation helps support this, and the district supports the location for the construction training program for the students. And this resulted as a kind of post-2017 wildfires as a way to help adults, including 18-year-olds and up, to learn the construction trade. So it is a very collaborative pilot that's also happening down in Napa, and we couldn't do it without the facilities and the support of the school district. We've had a number of classes now go through. Probably it's somewhere between 25 and 30 students graduating, and we're planning to do another round next year.
Fantastic.
And then for a recap of our in-kind services, so for Claro and Clara youth mentoring programs, there were 53 total students that were connected with this past year for groups and then individual one-on-one sessions. They also had a field trip where 50 attended to San Francisco State University. They got to do like a scavenger hunt tour, and then a lot of the students for the first time got to walk the Golden Gate Bridge. so it was a lot of fun. For tutoring services at the elementary school, there was one volunteer in the classroom reaching about 20 students, and with our student assistance program that provides wraparound services for the household, we had over 100 referrals this past year.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Community Schools Initiative. The Up Valley Family Centers provides backbone support, and what that means is it's staff support to bring the partners together, to bring the evaluator services, to kind of look at the collective impact of the initiative as a whole. We started this work together with the district in 2014, doing a whole needs assessment of students, teachers, and parents, and then created some initiatives that were specific to the needs that came out from those surveys. And so we've been going for a number of years. This past year, we had 36 partner organizations involved in providing some sort of service to students and families on campus and in the community. And we hosted 3 different partner meetings. We also have a steering committee that helps kind of move different efforts forward. And all of that really has happened virtually because of the pandemic. So some of you have attended and participated in those. We are looking forward in the coming year to being in person. We were able this past year to host a town hall in this very room that was held bilingually. We utilized parents and students to help lead small groups, and a lot of participation among students, which was great. That resulted in a report that the Napa County Public Health put together, which we'd be happy to share with you if you haven't seen it. That was one of those things I was thinking you could have a presentation just on the report from that town hall, and I think it would be very informative and interesting for you. But certainly we have the written report that we can get to you. We also recently, in May, with our preschool partners and the district, the elementary school, hosted a preschool and transitional kindergarten fair for families to understand their options, to be able to really see what would be right for their child, and understand also transitional kindergarten because of the changes there. I think that were it not for the Community Schools Initiative, it would have been harder to convene the partners and provide the information to families. And so I think that's an example of how a Community Schools Initiative really brings everybody together for the benefit of the students and the families. We also have been working with an external evaluator, Ramey and Associates, that has been helping us to see the collective impact. We're trying to gather the results, and this might be another presentation down the road, but we're gathering results from student counseling services provided by Mentis and Aldea. We're providing data through the Up Valley Family Center's Clara Youth Mentoring Program. We've just signed on a new partner, Girls on the Run, to provide data, and pulling all of that together and looking at it year over year, we're starting to see some trend data, which is helpful for us in terms of seeing where the impact is and also honing in deeper where we see persistent needs. Of course, from one year to the next, it could look different. The pandemic will have a big impact on, also the needs that we're seeing and the resources that we can bring to bear. Historically, over these past several years, the S.H. Cowell Foundation has provided funds for the Community Schools Initiative. They've provided funds for our staff support of that. Also, they provide funds to the district, and they've been very supportive of these efforts, and I think have really positioned the district well to receive the community schools funding from the California Department of Education, which is wonderful because it's going to sustain and grow the programs and the services for students and families in the coming 5 years. So we're really excited to be working with the district on growing the impact of our work together. So that's a recap of the backbone support, kind of the role that we've played on the Community Schools Initiative. The next slide is about, just to mention that in kind, we do have a Family Resource Center on the elementary school campus that is very broad in its scope. That's another topic I could come and present on at some point in the future in terms of all of that, what we do. But essentially, we're here to provide access to resources for people in the community. And that includes, obviously, students and families of the district. We do information and referrals. We have done a lot of community education and outreach, in particular this year about COVID and the vaccines and helping to answer questions, getting at-home tests out to people, etc. We have case management services. We do crisis intervention. We partner with a lot of different organizations to bring their services to our offices to make them accessible for students and families. We have financial coaching services. Several of our staff are trained certified financial coaches. We also do free tax preparation, stay open evenings during tax season, immigration services, parenting services, and of course, we've now been doing quite a bit around disaster preparedness and long-term recovery because of the impacts to the community. So we serve typically 3,000 people or more each year, and the needs have grown, and so our staff has grown, and we've been pretty busy these past couple of years. But so that's our family resource center side of the house. And then thinking forward, so the planned services, and these are the proposed understanding for the coming year, just kind of to do a brief summary. So we'll continue with the educationally based mental health services. Those will be provided by Mentis and Aldea, who have been our partners for many years now. The new community schools grant will provide an additional day of therapy services that will be funded, and then so that gets 10 days of therapy services for students at both the elementary school and the high school. And we will also be continuing with family education services, all of the ESL, GED, Spanish literacy services, as well as through the community schools grant. We will be adding family support for students with special needs twice a month. Parents can, staff will be available on school campuses, and so that will be a new service that will be coming forth. The community schools coordination, we will continue. We do have some added support from the grant to help with that, and that helps us bring together more partnerships in the future. We will be able to expand the evaluation of the Community Schools Initiative. We will have dedicated support at the elementary school to run social emotional services and groups through the Second Step curriculum. So that is an enhancement that is, I think we're looking forward to providing. And then we will also be continuing to support the kindergarten transition, and including with transitional kindergarten and the alignment with the preschools. Restorative justice services will continue at the elementary and the junior, senior high school as they have this past year. We will also, I mentioned doing the social emotional learning. And then in kind will continue to do all that we've been doing and mentioned earlier in the year, or in the presentation. And then finally, we are planning for our back to school celebration. It's going to be on August 27th at 4:30 on Berry Field, and we hope that you all can join us. So any questions for Marcelo or I?
Appreciate the partnership.
We appreciate the partnership as well. Very much so.
Okay, seeing no questions or comments, thank you. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Marcela. All right, moving on to item 7.2, Cristobal Senior High School Math Innovation Team. Michael.
good evening. So the computer's misbehaving over there. I think here's what I think we should do. I'm going to present without that. Okay, it's not essential. It was a really pretty presentation, but I think we can do without it, and then they'll work to hopefully get it ready for Maureen's, which will be much more interesting. All right, I'm going to present tonight on some really great work that our secondary math team did this year. And it was remarkable. It's just, it's something that should be shared with you and with the community. Just want to share the details of it with you. And a little bit of background. In 2020-21, we had a study done of our secondary math program by WestEd. And WestEd is a very well-respected national organization focused on education and improving student learning. And they spent time with us, and they developed a written report that had kind of a long series of recommendations, probably too many recommendations realistically to be implemented. And so we prioritized them and determined what we were really going to focus on. And some of those were creating an innovation team of dedicated educators committed to improving the program and outcome for students, creating a unified vision for our mathematics instruction, to revisit and look at our math curriculum that we were using, to promote deep thinking and problem solving in our students, and to address the equity gap, as well as focus on reluctant learners. So those were some of the real recommendations that we prioritized. In the spring and summer of 2021, we formed a team. And that team was really our junior, senior high school math teachers. It originally included some elementary teachers, but we determined that the focus of those groups were really different. And so the elementary math teachers, they did some work of their own, and this team really became a secondary focused group and focused on that WestEd study, which was a secondary study. The site administration, myself, we joined the team at times, but it was really junior, senior high school math teachers. The instructional coaches from Napa County Office of Education also joined the team at times. We identified a partner in the UC Davis Math Project. This partner was chosen to help us carry out the recommendations of the WestEd study. And Gail Standiford, who's a math coach, was identified as our liaison, kind of our coach. During this school year, the team had 10 monthly all-day meetings with Gail from UC Davis. So what that looked like was 10 times a year, about once a month, the team would come out of their classrooms, go to the district office conference room, have a quiet place to work, and they did great work. They reviewed student data, they examined research on math instructional strategies and methodologies, they focused on improving the math instruction. We also provided a release day for Stephen Morgan, who's a junior senior high school math teacher. So he had one period a day or every 2 days where he would help support the team, observe classes, give feedback, interface with Gail. I thought that was helpful. So some of our year one outcomes this year. Number one was a recommendation for new curriculum. And this team recommended that we choose CPM, or College Preparatory Mathematics, for years 1, 2, 3 of high school mathematics. And CPM's been around for a long time, since about 1989. It's pretty widely used in Napa County, Sonoma County, statewide. And their curriculum, for lack of a better term, is very Common Core. It's very centered on conceptual thinking. It maintains procedural practice, but is a very conceptual math curriculum. It's also very language rich, so you can imagine, there was a time when you'd see math assignment that just had a list of problems, right? Practice procedures. That's not what this curriculum is. It's long stories, long problems that you have to understand what you need to do to come to a conclusion. It's a very language rich curriculum. Choosing curriculum is not always easy. Everyone brings their own perspective to instruction. So to see this team kind of in a unified voice want this curriculum, that was impressive. It was a conclusion that they came to pretty easily. And it's a very important recommendation around curriculum for 3 years of mathematics. Another outcome of this year was a recommendation for integrated mathematics pathway. So you're used to year 1, 2, and 3 of high school math being Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. And when Common Core came out, many schools across the state moved to an integrated math model. We did not, but what that model is teaching really algebra and geometry together. So instead of algebra, geometry, algebra, it's kind of all mixed together, taught over 3 years. Algebra and geometry is kind of the same thing, right? Algebra is algorithms, and geometry is a spatial representation. But they're the same concepts. I think, during the release of Common Core in the study, part of that looked at some of the countries around the world that were doing really well in mathematics, one of which was Singapore. And this is how they were teaching mathematics. It was in an integrated way, together, so students can see the connections. So, this team has recommended that we move to that model, integrated 1, 2, and 3. For that to happen, it would happen over 3 years. You can't just drop it in because it'll impact the students who are already in the traditional pathway. So it'll be like integrated 1 next year, while students are still in geometry and algebra 2. And then the next year, integrated 1 and 2. And then the next year, 1, 2, and 3. So it'll be a 3-year transition. Another recommendation from this team was to adopt standards-based grading. Standards-based grading is used at the elementary school. And essentially what that means is that students are graded on their concept mastery. It really takes away any potential to include attendance, good behavior, participation from the grading, have it be about content mastery. It has a lot of benefits, one of which is, in this case, it really becomes more predictive about a student's success in college math. If a student can get a grade that really demonstrates how much math they know, that gives us a predictor of how they'll do in college, especially a large college, where students don't get the benefit of the relationship and demonstrating their good behaviors for teachers and for that math mastery. And there were some other outcomes just to call out. This team built a lot of trust during their collaboration, which I think will benefit them for years to come as a team. Talked about common assessments, common math practices. It was just a really high level of collaboration that they built a pattern of how to collaborate successfully. Hey, there you go. That's perfect because this is like super wordy, right? So another thing they did was they came up with a vision statement. Another really kind of challenging thing to do as a group of people, to come up with a common statement that you can stand behind collectively. And we'll read it because it's really good. It's a representation of, I think, this group's philosophy around mathematics instruction. As a math team, we will measure student success and growth and teach our students to embrace their own personal mathematical journey. Students will be given the opportunity to discover the world of math through collaboration, communication, problem solving, thereby developing confidence in their own potential and understanding the importance of persevering together. Through the process, all students will develop a more positive disposition towards mathematics, allowing them to become lifelong problem solvers, collaborators, with skills for success in college and career math. So some next steps heading into next year. We'll have continued reduced support from UC Davis and Yale, not 10 days, but 4 days, to support the transition to integrated mathematics, to support the implementation of CPM curriculum. We'll have really significantly increased support from the Napa County Office of Education's instructional coaches. Tom Lewis, the math instruction coach, will spend a lot of days with us in classrooms, in meetings. We'll begin the 3-year transition to an integrated mathematics pathway, and then we'll continue the discussion around standards-based grading. That is something that really needs more conversation amongst the team. What would that look like with our community members, with our families? So it's not something I don't think that would begin on August of next year. It's something that the team would like to do, and it needs more exploration before it begins. And I'll just say lastly, really impressed with the team. I think every single time they met, we were impressed. They came to the table ready to collaborate with an open mind, ready to learn, ready to contribute. It was just really successful work, and it was just something that we want to recognize and make public. So those are my comments. Kathy Bone was a member of this team. She probably speak to it really better than I can because she was in the room for all 10. So Kathy, if you want, I will step aside if you want to say something.
Yeah, sure. It's going to wait, what do you say? Yes, we are so appreciative of the opportunity to work together to improve our math program. Gail Stanford worked for CPM for a long time, so really knows the whole development and the strategies and has a really clear view of the big picture. She's didn't know a lot about standard eighth grading, but she bought a bunch of books and did a bunch of research for us, and really, I think that's going to help us set up some protocols as we move to that model. It's so exciting to be in a math room and have kids up cracking things on the walls and moving around instead of drool from those that can fall asleep. It's a work in progress, certainly. I don't know if you are familiar with CPM, but yes, it is very language heavy and it's not like a traditional math book where you can look at how to factor equations. So that's another piece that will be coming in this year. I think we're planning on doing some sort of integrated notebook so they can create the resource for themselves. And I have all kinds of toys in my room. It's lovely. Up and moving. So hopefully this will make a big change. It'll take a few years to see that change in the data. I'm very confident we will see an increase in abilities of our students.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I think this year was just a real boost of energy moving into next year. I think we're going to continue to see momentum from this group, and I think really that of all the things, really, it's that high level of trust that was created in the room and the high level of collaboration. I think that exists regardless of your curriculum, integrated or not. I think we've got a high functioning math team, and we look forward to their work in the future. Any questions you have for me? I'm happy to take them.
I'm kind of worried that you said that feel like a lot more reading. Like a lot of the kids, are they all proficient in speaking and reading like good English? Because I know it's mostly Hispanics. Will they be able to read and understand the problems, or is that going to be even more difficult for them?
That is a great question, and something that we certainly asked to determine that there's not a language barrier for students. There is a Spanish version that we purchased, so students that really need that high level of support have a Spanish version they could read.
Yeah, even though they don't translate the same. I don't know. I've read something like when I read it in Spanish, I don't understand. I just have to read it in English.
Here's what I can share with you. Because I think we'd like to think that mathematics is its own language, numbers. That's not how math is certainly not how math is being assessed, and it's certainly not the expectation that the state of California has for our students. So when our students take the CAS or the SBAC, that's what they see. Under the old test years ago, the CST, was these lists of problems. We don't get that anymore. We get language-rich questions from the state. And so I think your concern is really, really valid. But we, as educators, have got to find a way to support our students to be able to be proficient in a language-rich math context. And that's part of our work, and part of our challenge, and part of the challenge that some of our students are going to face, those that aren't fully proficient in English.
And I would just say, rather than shying away from it, which I think just a little bit, really need to immerse them in it more. Doing less reading, less language stuff will help them get better at that language stuff. So it's going to be a process, and it will probably be uncomfortable because we're used to the application, these columns, you get them right, boom, 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 done, and it's really much more about how they think about it and how they're able to, approach a problem-solving situation. So I hear what you're saying. You are not alone. It's hard to interpret think, give us, another year in person, I think those two differences. So,
Any other questions?
I'm just kind of wondering, measurables, obviously it's going to be a long process, at least 3 years before we've got anything fully up and running. And we know that the testing has been kind of off because of COVID. What are you looking at, this increased grade performance and then ultimately increased test scores?
We've gotten pretty good about collecting data. I think we've got more data sources than we've ever had. I think MAP is a great measure. I think CASP is a great measure. I think grades are a good measure. So I think we should have good data. And I think we'll start to be able to measure that next year. We'll have new curriculum in place in 9th grade or IM1 that I think we can track through on the same timeline as the new dashboard. So I don't think having good data to look at will be hard for us. Yeah. Other thoughts, comments?
Thank you. Okay, so item at 7.3, the local control accountability plan survey. We decided to table this as we will have a presenter with us today for major reasons. But we're going to go back to this item in the next board meeting. On to item 8.1, the public hearing. As an elected governing body of the Calistoga Unified School District, the Board of Trustees conducts public hearings for the purpose of maintaining open communication with parents, students, and residents of the Calistoga community and school district. Through the public hearing process, trustees seek ideas and viewpoints regarding the efficiency and quality of district-sponsored programs or any other area of the operation of the district and schools. The trustees believe that open communication is a key element in the ongoing process of district, school, and program improvement. So we begin with the local control accountability plan, item 8.2. Superintendent.
So I think I got lucky and this is going to work for my presentation. So in the board packet, there are two different documents. The first is the actual draft of the LCAP. It now consists of 3 different documents. One is for parents, and that's just giving an overview of the budget. The second is a supplement to the LCAP, and then the third is the actual LCAP for 2022. And as you probably remember, this is a 3-year plan, so it's from 2021 through 2024, but each year we do revise it to see whether or not our actions are working, and then whether or not we want to change any of our actions. So Alex and I were talking about just the lack of accessibility to the LCAP. That's always been a concern. This year it's a 75-page document. In the past it's been as much as like a 150-page document. So on the good side, that the amount of it is changing. The state keeps changing the template, trying to make it more accessible to parents in the community, but it is our opinion that we're not quite there yet. So Alex created this template. Our intention is that we'll use that template each year. It will be posted on the website along with the LCAP document, because that is a requirement to have it posted on our website, as well as the budget overview for parents. So I'm just going to walk you through it. This is also a fairly text-dense document because there is some information that we need to make sure that parents are understanding. And again, this is intended for parents to be able to access the information about our actions and our goals in the LCAP. So this will also be translated as well as soon as you approve it at our next board meeting. So this is a public hearing, meaning that I'm going to review the document, and the next meeting you will actually approve the document. It is likely that the county office might have some suggestions. They have the draft right now, and by the next meeting they'll come back to tell us whether or not they feel that So on the first here are LCAP goals. As you know, we have kept the same LCAP goals for the last 5 years. We did a little bit of revision in my first year. There are 3 very simple goals. You hear the principals refer to them every single board meeting. I refer to them every single board meeting. So those have not changed. The next slide, please. Thank you. So these, there are 3 things that we're looking at. First, we're going to look at the metrics that we have determined. And in the LCAP, every district gets to determine whatever metrics they want to use. There are some requirements on the part of the state. So one of the requirements is that we have to use CASP results. Something that is not a requirement is we can use any other local control, local indicator that we want to. So we are using MAP, which you've heard a lot about. So this page just identifies all the metrics that we're using for LCAP goal number 1. Next slide. Actually, there's 2 slides. We have lots of metrics for LCAP goal number 1 because that's those we're measuring our academics. Next slide. So the second part is the goals is analyzing them. I'm going to get this up in front of me so I can see it. So again, this is text-dense document. And we are required every year to look at our actions, determine whether or not there's any substantive differences. So what are the actions that we identified and do we actually achieve those actions? So we have actually listed all of the actions that there was substantive difference between them. So we may have said we want to do a particular thing, but we didn't quite achieve it. So those are all listed there. We had a lot of actions, as I said, in action goal number 1. So we achieved all of the ones that I've listed there. Then we also have to determine what our material differences are. If there's a small difference in the budget, we do not have to list it, but if there's a large difference in the budget, we have to point it out to the public. So that's under the material differences. So like in that particular goal, there are expenditures increased by over $1 million. That's substantial. Okay, it's not a small amount of money. And then we also have to list under our analysis what are our effective actions for progress. So we have to tell what we felt that we did effectively or what we did not do effectively. So you look down at the second there, the challenges and goals to the goal. After we've reflected on our actions, we have to determine whether or not we're going to make any changes in our actions. So we did change some of the actions, and that was based on input that we got from our staff and our parents and our students. And this was actually the first year that I sat down with leadership groups from both the junior, senior high school and the elementary school, and they gave us their own actions and suggestions for the LCAP. So those are reflected. Go to the next page to LCAP goal number 2. Same process, we had to determine what our actions are, whether or not we met those actions, if there are any differences, and if we have any planned changes from that. Go ahead to goal number 3, please. There you go. Okay, next one, please. One more. There you go. So then at the end of this, we submit this to the county. They'll determine whether or not, as I said, that we've met all the requirements for the LCAP. If in fact we have, I'll bring it back to you for your approval at the next meeting. You at the next meeting also have the opportunity as a board to decide whether or not you feel that these actions are appropriate, if our changes are appropriate. If not, you can make changes at that board meeting and then approve those changes as a board. Questions about the process? Overall, I'm really proud of the fact that as a district, we may not have met all of our goals as far as student achievement, but we implemented almost all of the actions that we intended to implement. And as far as next year, there are not a lot of changes, so we're just going to continue on the path that we've currently set. And hopefully, you'll see some changes next year. And again, we'll have it translated also to make it accessible to our Spanish-speaking families. And we'll have a much less text-dense presentation when we go to DLAP or to parent groups. So even this will be overwhelming, but this document is intended to be read on the website. Questions? Thank you for taking the time to read through both documents. Any questions from the audience?
Just a quick, sorry, I'm looking at the, the challenges or changes. I'm assuming parents for the community will have questions about, what are we planning to do, let's say with transportation, right? The inability to hire drivers, so transportation for those students who are needed in the future. I don't know where we are in that regard at this moment, but
That's a good question. At this point in time, we have not included transportation in the next 2 years. We do not foresee that changing at this point in time. Availability for drivers, so it is not in the district budget for the next 2 years.
so at this point, it's, only for the special education students.
It is,
correct?
yeah. And we're legally required to provide that for students who have an IEP that designates that they need to have transportation.
So that's something to think about for the next few years in terms of if they need increase.
And we have said that if we have families who absolutely cannot transport their child to school, that we will make arrangements to set houses for that.
Great. Any questions?
I was going to say that some of the kids in my neighborhood, they hit the Calistoga shuttle. Works.
No, and yeah, that's great, but for those students who might live outside the city limits, that's the limitation with the city shuttle, it's only within Calistoga limits, but okay, great, thank you. So on this moment, I would like to open the public hearing at
Do you want the clicker?
6:50.
Do you want the clicker?
Does it work?
It should.
Any comments from the board or from the public? Anybody? Okay, great. So we close the hearing. 6:56. Am I reading the clock right? Okay. Thank you. So moving on to item 8.3, the 22-23 district budget. Thank you, Maureen. And it looks like your presentation is going to work.
Hopefully we can get through it. All right, we'll start with the first slide, Cynthia. So as a district, we bring in general fund revenue, and we bring it in 4 different areas. The first being our local revenue, our local property taxes. And then we have state revenue, other state revenue, so different grants that we get from the state would be included in that number. And then we also get federal revenue as well. And overall, LCFF, our property taxes, bring in over 85% of our income for the district. And then everything else falls under the rest to make up like 100% of our revenue. Next slide, Cynthia. So when we look at our LCFF property tax revenue increases by about $416,000 next year. That's a 2% projected increase. Our state aid remains the same, and our special education property taxes are going to increase by about $91,000. Special ed was given a raise in our per student allocations through the state of California, so that's where that $91,000 is coming from in special ed. So for us, hopefully that will reduce what we're contributing to the special ed program a little bit and save a little bit of money in our general fund. Next slide. On the federal revenue side,
we are decreasing federal revenue by about $302,000. All of our title programs are remaining the same for now. We haven't seen revenue changes yet, but we will see those before December of 2022. Federal special education decreases by almost $1,200, and then our one-time federal funding is decreasing by about $301,000. Right now, that's a little overstated, so you'll probably see some big changes come first interim for the one-time federal funds, but it just has to do with having to put income in next year so we can match expenditures to that. So we'll see a big change in federal revenue come October, November, December when we do first interim. State revenue decreases by $222,000. That's because our one-time funding is decreasing by over $1 million. So all of our one-time funding to come back to school with COVID and things like that, that's going away. And then we received our CCSPP grant. Jenny talked a lot about that tonight through Up Valley Family Centers. And so we're going to see an income increase in our state grants of $550,000 for the CCSPP grant. And then our STRS on behalf increased by about $260,000, and then we have little minor adjustments to our lottery income. Our local revenue decreases by about $220,000. Are you catching the theme here? Decreasing of income all the way through. E-rate funding decreases by about $180,000. That's because we had a one-time Category 2 project that's allowing us to buy all new servers and switches and things like that this year, so that was a one-time project. We won't have that next year. Retiree benefits decreased by about $41,000, and that's coming in and coming out, so it's income matching expenditure. Interest earnings, we decreased by about $10,000, not getting as much bang for our buck in interest earnings right now. And then our local grants and other local income increased by about $11,000. Then we move on to expenditures. That was all of our income for general fund. Now we're on the expenditure side. We have certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits. That's our personnel costs for the district. Those personnel costs are about 79% of our budget in total. That leaves about 21% for everything else. Our supplies budget's about only 3.2% of our general fund, and then services and operating expenditures are about 15.5%. We'll look at each one of these areas individually. You can move forward, Cynthia. Certificated salaries increased by $76,000, classified salaries increased by $173,000. I'll touch on some main points. We had a lot of one-time certificated salaries this year. We did the independent study program through negotiations where teachers received a stipend to take care of independent study contracts. So that's out of the budget for this year, so that reduced the salaries increase for certificated a little bit. And then we had the one-time stipends that all our staff got, but part of that was in certificated salaries as well. All step and common costs for 22-23 are included in the budget. All staffing changes that we know about right now are included in the budget, as well as position movements and personnel leaves. We have a lot of people out on personnel leaves right now. Seems to be lots of families growing out there. All the one-time funds have been removed, as I mentioned, and then we do have a new position in 22-23 of the elementary Spanish teacher. On the classified side, we are increasing salaries by almost $174,000. Again, everything's in there that I mentioned on the certificated side, as well as new positions for a health technician and a TK paraprofessional. And those two positions are part of the CCSPP grant, so that's part of the state grant. Benefits. Benefits are changing immensely when it comes to STRS and PERS for the 22-23 school year. We're going up from almost 17% in STRS to 19% at a $252,000 cost. And then PERS is going from 22.91 to 25.37 at a $154,000 cost. Crazy, crazy high employer rates for STRS and PERS, and absolutely no money from the state to assist districts with that cost. Workers' comp in essence remains about the same. Health insurance caps were increased for both certificated and classified staffs this year by $2,400 a year. New cap for certificated is $15,600 a year, $12,600 for classified, and management confidential remain at $10,200. The other employee benefits that we pay through payroll are Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment. Those are all remaining the same. In 22-23, every certificated staff member for every dollar we pay out for payroll will be paying out an extra 22.41%, and then for classified, that totals 34.88%. I think I remember it being somewhere below 10% when I started in schools way, way, way back when. Supplies and materials on the expenditure side of the budget, we're reducing by about $185,000. All the one-time purchases for 21-22 have come out of the budget for 22-23. We do have a math textbook adoption in 22-23, and all the other expenses that relate to our different resources, but again, decreasing by about $185,000. That number will change as soon as we close the budget this year and we rebudget things that we need to rebudget for next year, so you'll see a difference in first interim with that as well. Services and operating expenses increased by almost $300,000. That is mostly due to the CCSPP grant. Our contract with Up Valley has increased immensely because of the grant, and so that's where most of those costs are. And then utilities have seen about a 20% increase in utility costs, so of course we had to increase our utilities as well. Capital outlay reduced by about $67,000. That's because all the one-time purchases are on for 21-22, and then in 22-23 we have a couple of equipment replacements for maintenance that we want to do, and then kitchen infrastructure. We received about almost $50,000 from the state of California to purchase new things for our kitchens, so that's also in the budget for 22-23. Lots of good things on that list for our kitchens and much needed equipment. We transfer out of our general fund to cafeteria and facilities. This year we are at $500,000 to transfer out, $250,000 to each fund. Cafeteria will probably be a little bit less than that, but we still will do the full $250,000 to facilities because we have a lot of projects going on right now that we want to make sure stay funded. 22-23 we're looking at $426,000. A lot of that decrease comes because of our vended meals contract that the board approved last month. Some of that is income coming in from those vended meals contracts, so that reduces our general fund transfer into cafeteria. We do support programs with our general fund dollars. The programs that we support are listed here: special education, Title I, technology, routine restricted maintenance, that is at the requirement of the state. And then we do some CES outdoor education, as well as we have an AVID grant, and we have to match funds with the AVID grant. So this year, 21-22, we're looking at 3.6. Next year, that increased to about 3.764. Now we're going to move on to multi-year assumptions. That was all about the 22-23 budget. Moving on to multi-year assumptions, we have to then also develop not only 22-23, but 23-24 and 24-25. So in the assumptions for those 2 years, we are going to see a 4% increase in property taxes for 23-24 and 24-25. We are still working with our one-time COVID and ESSER expenditures, so those are still in the out years of the budget. We'll continue to spend those funds down until they're gone. We do have some staffing additions. We talked about the 22-23 elementary teacher, and I also do have in the 24-25 budget a possible UTK teacher just in case. If we see enrollment very low coming into the fall, we should be able to, relook at that. Step and column is in all 3 years of the budget. Changes to STRS and PERS, there's a glare on the screen so I can't really read it. Changes to STRS and PERS, over $439,000 in the next 3 years. So that comes directly out of our property tax money. We're not getting any other support from the state on that. K-12 textbook adoptions are both in 22-23 and 23-24. Again, increase in utilities at over 20% for all years. And in the next couple of years, we're moving all those restricted salaries that we're paying for in those one-time COVID funds, we'll be moving those back to unrestricted. So we'll see some expenditures increase in our unrestricted side of the house. And I didn't realize that square also says the same thing, textbook adoptions. So I just really wanted everybody to know we're going to be adopting textbooks. So this is what our multi-year looks like as far as our income and our expenditures, and then where we look as our reserve percentages and our ending fund balances. Big thing I want the board to look at is the prior year change, increase and decrease, that third line. That tells us we're deficit spending. Those negative numbers say we're deficit spending in 22-23 and 23-24 and 24-25. We will work on hopefully moving that line closer. I doubt that we'll get anywhere near not deficit spending, but we will work at decreasing that deficit as we look at our carryovers and looking into how we end this year. And then the rest of the spreadsheet just shows how we set things up in our ending fund balance. So we have to have $8,000 for revolving cash. We have to have restricted balances that don't count as part of our ending fund balance percentages because they are restricted. We can only spend them in certain ways. And then we do have assignments in our general fund balance for different reserves that we want to make sure we keep that money available in case we need it, emergency projects, things like that. That state mandated designation is the 4% that we're required to have from the state. So we're required at the end of 22-23 to have almost $900,000, but obviously we will have more than that. And as a basic aid district, we really do need to make sure we have more than that. So next year we're looking at 25.02%. And then you can see with the deficit spending, we continue to go down as the years go out. What's not in this budget? What's not in this budget is transportation. Indira talked about that a little bit. We currently don't have it in our budget because we can't find a driver to drive our one bus route that we do have, or could have if we could find a driver. Currently, and I'll talk about this a little bit in my presentation as well, but legislature is proposing to enforce mandated transportation, and they're proposing that to be done by the 27-28 school year. Somehow there's a disconnect between our legislature thinking that this is a great idea and not realizing that there is not enough staffing in the state of California to drive buses. They are also proposing to do that at no help to any basic aid districts to enforce that mandate. So they will tell us, and if this may not pass, it's a proposal from the legislature, but they may say, yes, you have to start transportation in 27-28, but basic aid districts, you're not going to get any money to do that. So they're going to mandate us to start a program with no money. That's becoming a common thing with the state of California and basic aid districts, unfortunately. The second one is that we do not have any ELOP funds for the 22-23 school year in the budget yet. And that's because when I was putting the budget together, there was still quite a difference between what the legislature was proposing to have as a per student amount versus what the governor had projected in his May revision. So for now, we'll keep that out, and at the 45-day update, I'll be able to let the board know what that number turns out to be. May revision, there was one-time funds that the governor was proposing, over $8 billion at the time of budget adoption for our district. That number too was still being negotiated. The legislature did not want it to be as high, or I think they wanted it actually to be a little bit higher, but not substantial. But anyways, there was no decision yet, so we left that out of the May revision as well. A lot of times the one-time funds are what gets negotiated at the very end of, we'll give you this, but we're going to take away one-time funds, or we won't do this and we'll give you more one-time funds. So it's always a kind of a unknown until the state budget actually gets adopted. And then A to G, grant income and expenses. We know that we're getting $150,000. I didn't know when it was coming in 22-23 or 21-22. So that right now is out of the budget until I figure out what year I need to put it in. So you'll see that change as we go forward as well. And then connecting to the LCAP, I just wanted to touch on the budget overview for parents. We in 21-22, it's got pages I can't read the yellow on the screen because there's a flare. In 21-22, we were supposed to spend, based on our LCF calculation and what we got as supplemental and concentration grant funding through the state, we were supposed to spend $2.5 million on our highest needs students. Again, that's free and reduced lunch students, foster youth, homeless students, EL students, and we ended up spending over $3.1 million. And then in 22-23, we are set to spend a little over $2.5 million on those same high needs students, and we are projecting right now to spend $3.4 million. So, of course, through our LCAP and our actions, we have really targeted those students, and obviously spend a lot more money on actions for those students in the LCAP than what the state requires us, which is a great thing. And then going back to our general fund and our reserves, I just want to go over the reserve assignments a little bit. I talked about that a couple slides ago, and we do save some money in our ending fund balance in case we need to fund future person STIRs, like maybe next year. In maintenance emergencies, future technology infrastructure upgrades. Lottery funds all are now dealt out to the sites, so any lottery funds that we have right now are saved for future site allocations. And then we do have one-time money left from way back when we got one-time money, I think back in 2017-18, as well as MAW money, which is money that we get back for our special ed students, and that's at about $270,000. We do have a 10% reserve policy, which means we should have no less than $2.1 million in our reserve. Thank goodness we do have more, because as a basic aid district, we should. And then restricted funding and restricted fund balances are a little over $2 million. And those, if you look at the multi-year projections, those go down. And by the last year out, we're at about 500,000 of those restricted fund balances. Why do we need a reserve? One-time federal and state money allowed us to save expenditures in our unrestricted fund, and now we're going to move to deficit spending in the out year. So it's good that we have some chunk of reserve right now, a big chunk of reserve percentage. And then increasing reserves helps with cash flow. As a basic aid district, we do only get paid in December and April for property taxes. So if we have a higher reserve, it does help us do things like make payroll, pay our bills. And then increased reserves keeps cuts away from staffing and programs when the economy is going up and down, and guaranteed we'll be seeing the economy going down pretty soon. So good idea is keep those reserves high. These are our other fund balances. We have not only our general fund, which I talked about through this whole presentation, but we do have other funds in our district, adult ed fund. It's kind of an in and out. We get paid from the state to have adult ed, and we send that right back out to Napa Valley for the adult ed program. Child nutrition services, we always have to have an ending fund balance in there so we can pay our bills during the summertime. Fund 21, the bond fund, you see that's a little over $10 million now. That has to do with our bond sale that we did in March, and we're spending some of that this summer, because right now we're sitting at about $11 million in there. So we do have some projects that we have planned, expenditures from that fund. Developer fees fund, we're at about $226,000. We saw couple of good developer fee income just in the last couple months for a couple of projects that are happening in Calistoga right now. State facilities fund, that's at $126,000 right now. It sits at about $450,000, and that's because we have some projects that are going to be coming out of the state facilities fund as well this summer. And then our capital outlay fund is going to sit at around $608,000 by year end. Next steps. The state will hopefully adopt a budget by June 15th. And when I say adopt a budget, that means the legislature is giving the governor their budget, and they're saying this is what we want. Governor has his May revision with what he wanted, and now they spend the next few days tackling each issue and coming up with some kind of compromise to a state budget that hopefully then gets actually signed before June 30th. We are going to review our final updates to both our budget and the LCAP, and that will come before the board next week with changes. We are going to review and consider approval of that LCAP and budget at the June 20th meeting. And then after that, after the state budget adoption, we'll have 45 days to come back to the board and let you know all the different changes that were made between how we adopted our budget, how the state adopted their budget, and how that affects our budget after the fact. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Okay, so we need to open the public hearing at 7:14. We can entertain comments or questions from the staff, the board, or from the public. Now slow down, one by one. So we are seeing none, we're closing at 7:15. Okay, thank you. Okay, so item 9.1, CSBA Annual Education Conference. And for planning purposes, we would like to confirm that members of the board who are interested in participating, attending the annual conference. It's going to be held on December 1st to the 3rd in San Diego. So I know that Cynthia sent an email to all of us since the previous days, and I just want to confirm if, there's interest from the board to attend, and maybe there's any questions. So for sure,
But we need to know, yeah.
Item 2.
I'll give it.
Okay.
Rudy, you are? Okay, so we're confirming that Rudy is, Jeff, you're getting back to us, Julie is a no, Stephanie is a yes, and then you're a yes.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff or something. Thank you. All right, so moving on to reports. 10.1, Calistoga Elementary School Principal.
Well, good evening, everyone. I can't believe last week was just the last week of school. It feels a little longer ago now that we're on the other side of it. For ensuring academic excellence for all students, we did complete our Smarter Balance CASP assessments for grades 3 through 6. We well exceeded the 95% participation rate, and this is the first time that students have taken this assessment since spring of 2019. We also administered the spring measure of academic progress, the MAP assessment, and this year teachers were trained in using MAP assessments as a tool for students to develop personal goals for academic growth. During the month of May, we celebrated student participation with music on Mondays and Honor Pops on Fridays, since we had a lot of testing occurring during that month. And so a huge thank you to our data leadership team for supporting assessments. On June 6th and 7th of last week, we had our Trimester 3 Academic Awards Assembly. Students in grades K through 3 got awards for growth, achievement, and perfect homework. Grades 4 through 6 students got awards for growth, achievement, and honor roll. And all kindergarten through 6th grade students who had either high growth on MAP or high achievement on MAP received certificates as well. With respect to LCAP goal number 2, providing a safe, healthy, and positive school environment, we had our jogathon with our parent-teacher organization on June 3rd. First of all, the weather was absolutely wonderful that day to be able to conduct that, including having students be able to do laps in the afternoon. So far, and I think this has probably gone up, and I'm looking at Michelle here, the last count I had, this was on Friday when I submitted the report, was at $3,700 had been earned through the jogathon. We had high volunteerism with our parents to come help mark the lap cards. We also had help from Rosa Rubio and I think it's Joe, I want to say Miramontes is her last name, with the water station, which we did not run out of water. We had a sufficiency of ice. We also had help with the spray bottle brigade to cool students down as they ran by, and I think fun was had by all. We also had a student submission for the jogathon t-shirt, and so the students in grades 3 through 6 vote on that shirt, and so we had a 4th grade student win for that t-shirt. With respect to LCAP goal number 3, increasing parent engagement and enhancing communication, we had our open house on June 2nd. We have a lot of events happen right at the end of the year there, and one of the reasons why we do put our open house a little later is so that when the parents come to visit, we can go ahead and send everything home at that point. And so we wanted to showcase each of our classrooms, and we really appreciated being able to host this event in person. And it seemed that we had a pretty steady flow of parents, but we didn't have, overcrowding or anything like that on that night. So that is my report for this evening.
Do you have any questions or comments? Thank you, and thank you for all the celebrations with the students. I have a,
You
a
have
view,
a
direct
great
view
view of that.
to see how the parents get there and they're sitting, they're very proud of their accomplishments. It's so nice to see that. So thank you for the work. All right. Mr. Guerrero.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is my report for this month. Darrell Cup goal number 1, ensuring academic excellence for all students. I'm just realizing that I'm getting older because things are getting blurrier here. Our school year came to an end last Friday with the graduation ceremony for the class of 2022. To say that 2021-22 school year was challenging is an understatement. I want to acknowledge the dedication and perseverance that our staff has demonstrated through this very challenging year. So kudos to all our teachers and support staff. As we started out the year, we all really envisioned a regular school year since our kids were back and everybody was, but the truth is that the demands of the school year were really high for all of us this year. I also want to acknowledge the exceptional work that Vice Principal Monica Valdenegro continues to do. As you're aware, CAPS testing returned this year. Ms. Valdenegro was committed to testing as many students as possible, especially when you have kind of the upper grades, especially seniors that don't really have a lot of buy-in into the CAPS. She was even pulling students last week after they finished their finals, so going over to their classrooms and getting them in to tests. So kudos to Ms. Valdenegro. She's a very talented administrator and an asset to our school and our district. LCAP goal number 2, provide a safe, healthy, and positive school environment. In my report last month, I spoke about the 100 Days of May, and I see that Nicole kind of has talked about all the activities. So there are many year-end activities and planning that occur. I believe I underestimated the 100 days, as it feels like it's been a year since the last time we had a board meeting. The end of the year was a hectic time, not only with all our typical activities, but also an increase of school discipline issues that we have. LCAP goal number 3, increase parent engagement and enhance communication. I was able to participate last week in the PICA SEL parent graduation, and it was great to see so many parents finishing the training and holding up their diplomas with pride via the Zoom graduation. Melinda Mendoza from the district office did a really fantastic job in relating her personal journey as one of the speakers for the graduation. 8th grade promotion and all our high school graduations also occurred last week. It was wonderful to welcome our parents and family and friends back to those 2 events. They were very well attended. A really special thanks to Chris Oakes and his crew for all the work they did and setting up, and especially in 100-degree weather. Jesus and Kyle were really out there all day on the field setting up. So thank you to him and his crew. And that is my report for this month.
Okay. Director of Educational Services and Human Resources. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry, that is Chris.
Okay.
It's your turn, sorry.
I
I tried to get out of here.
Just to add to Raul's comment about this year, we went into it thinking, it's going to be much easier this year compared to the previous 2, but it was a really tough year with absences and just a lot going on. I know all of us let out a big sigh of relief Friday night about 10 when the official end of the school year was over. So, just like you said, May was like the peak, just running around crazy, just trying to get stuff done. And then just to move on to the actual report for our bond program. Since our last update, we really had to kind of narrow our focus on really getting everything we needed done for all the summer projects. So some of the bigger projects that I discussed, we haven't done a whole lot with those. It's mainly focused on our summer projects. So first one is over here at the high school, is the black box conversion to a classroom. We're all lined up for that. The contractor will be out here on Wednesday to get started. And then the shade structure fabrication process has started. The company's started the fabrication. We've hired the necessary inspector for materials and the installation. Our paving project, so underneath the shade structure is going to be paving. So we're going to put the two together, the paving for the shade structure as well as the parking lot. Unfortunately, that process we're still in the bid process on that. That ends on June 30th. So next week, you'll end up, we'll be bringing to the board, I don't remember the specific term, but it's a delegation of authority to allow you to approve the project ahead of us having the actual bid process completed. So we'll have that to you next week. We decided we're going to put off the high school parking lot until we do major projects here, because the DSA is going to require us to do updates to that parking lot. But we are going to have the parking lot striped, the one by the baseball field, as well as the main parking lot. So that'll be done this summer. One thing that's coming up on tonight's agenda is the IT project that Maureen mentioned in the budget with the servers and cabling. We had a hard time really nailing down that scope of work, going back and forth with the company. So we finally got that nailed down at the last minute. That's on tonight's agenda for your approval. I don't have a start date on that, but thank God for Larry, because I really didn't understand what was going on. I would have looked at what they said and said, oh, that would be fine, but Larry really nailed it down, and that's what took us so long, because they weren't really hearing what Larry had to say. If it was just me, we would probably end up with a lot of wrong stuff. So thanks to Larry for really coming through and spending a lot of time on getting that squared away. Another kind of a side project, not one that we're doing under the Ron program with the construction company, but the interior of the district office needs some painting, some touch-up, or some patching and painting. It's settled, some cracks. It's packages thrown through there all day, and just needs some love inside. So that's on tonight's agenda for approval as well. And then that's all I got. Oh, any questions on this summer?
No questions, but I just want to thank you, and please thank your staff for how hard they have worked, especially in the last 4 weeks, and trying to clean up the facilities and all that, and doing it with such a grace and dedication. So we really appreciate that, and Mr. Guerrero, for your patience and for hanging in there despite the situations. But we really appreciate that, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm definitely thankful for my staff. The new year, not the new school year, but the new year really kicked off with just a lot of people out, and there's been a lot of people covering, working extra hours and really working hard to make sure that everything continues. So I'm super grateful for the staff.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving to the Director of Educational Services and Human Resources.
A couple updates for you tonight. Our monthly COVID update. COVID is still present in our schools. A little bit of context where we're at. In April, we had about 1 case every 2 days. In May, we had about 3 cases every 2 days. And then in June, we had about 4 cases every 2 days. So it's been this increase in this persistent presence. You contrast that with a high of 14 cases every 2 days in January. So it's not an intense spike, but it is continuing to be with us. And at this point, we have some well-established mitigating strategies, COVID testing, notifying staff and students of exposure, isolation and quarantine timelines, etc. So we have a good program in place as we continue to deal with this. During the summer program, pool testing will continue to occur at the elementary school, and this is really good news. It's great news that Concentric can send staff during the summer to keep that pool testing in place. We're waiting to see what changes there's going to be from CDPH regarding COVID rules for next year. So far, one change we are hearing about is a shift from the use of PCR to antigen testing statewide. So we're a district that took a really aggressive stance to COVID testing, and we chose to do pool testing, which is where we're testing pretty much all students, especially at the elementary school, on a weekly basis. I don't know that that's going to be an option for districts next year, where the state funds someone like Concentric to come in and test all the students. We're hearing that that's not the direction the state's going to sustain. They're going to now move to all antigen testing. What that would look like is that we would order large supplies of antigen tests, rapid tests, and we would test, our staff would test students and staff who are symptomatic. So that's kind of we've seen some guidance from CDPH, so I don't know that that's official yet. So we'll continue to monitor that. And, that said, we anticipate there will continue to be an expectation that there be a testing program of sorts in place. And the other COVID guidelines at this point remain relatively unchanged. One thing we are kind of paying attention to is, are there going to be any updated guidance to COVID guidelines for athletics? Either way, it looks like COVID will continue to be part of our lives for the foreseeable future, and we should be prepared to continue to have our COVID systems in place, at least a little bit longer. And also want to give you an update on our summer program, which kicks off on Monday, 6/20. Very excited to have another large program this year. We have, as of today, 320 students enrolled. That's about 38% of our student population. So slightly lower than last year's summer, which I think is predictable. Last year, we were really cooped up. I think we had a lot of students that just wanted to get back and have that social engagement. But 38% is still a very large number. It's about 220 students at CES, about 100 students at the junior senior high school. And we have an impressive number of 56 staff working this summer. Some of those are shared assignments, so a teacher teaching 2 weeks with a partner teacher. We do have a group of substitute teachers, substitute paraprofessionals. 56, that's a big number. And I think we're really seeing a paradigm shift in summer programs. Right? We used to do these very small targeted programs to students who had high needs for academic remediation. I think we and throughout the state, especially with state funding, are moving towards almost year-round schooling, at least for a large group of students. It's a big lift to do something like that, and it feels like another school year. I'm not kidding. The amount of planning, we've been planning this, we've been planning for 5 months. Scheduling, student scheduling, you have to set up a whole new schedule in areas, a master schedule, student enrollments, course requests, hiring of new staff. We hired a lot of external staff. Technology needs, making sure the technology is set up for all the staff, that new staff have computers, etc. Right? There's a lot of big things to go around. There are many people involved in the planning to thank. So it's been a group effort. I think we're doing better. We're better organized than we were last year. I think if we keep doing this, we'll get even better each year. We can discover where the loose ends are that we can protect. So our staff begin on Thursday and Friday of this week, and then our students begin on Monday. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Director of Business Services, Maureen.
Okay, I touched on this a little bit during my budget presentation, but I wanted to talk about the 22-23 state budget. Again, the legislature has to put that budget to the governor before June 15th or they don't get paid. So they definitely will do that, and we'll probably see something tomorrow, I would assume, if it didn't come out already today. And there's just a few things that I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to be beating a dead horse right now. UTK funding. They are mandating this UTK program for all districts, basic aid districts, community funded districts like ours. Do not see any funding for this mandated program. Same with transportation. I don't know where the transportation piece is going to fall with the actual state adopted budget, but in all the budget meetings I've been in, sounds like there's going to be something coming through for transportation for all. beginning in 27-28. And again, we will see no money as a property tax district. All LCFF districts, it will be built into their LCFF calculation, so they'll see funding for it. Very frustrating times for community-funded districts right now because most community-funded districts are like us. They're not seeing huge percentage increases in property taxes from year to year and are also dealing with things like wildfires, and we're just not seeing those big increases. ADA-funded districts or LCFF districts in the state for 22-23 are going to see a 10 to 15% increase in their revenue. And that's because of mandated programs that are coming in that they're going to build this funding into their formulas. The other thing that the governor did suggest in the May revision is that he added to the COLA for LCFF districts, and he added to the COLA with the reference that, well, that will help pay for your pension costs. Well, we don't get that because we're not part of an LCFF district. More to come on that. Our state budget will get adopted, and then we'll have a 45-day update at the August board meeting for the board members. Construction funding updates. Been working hard with Van Pelt Construction Services in creating our budget and cash flow for our master plan projects. What's become quite apparent in doing this is that we are going to need more money to fund our projects overall. With the current projects planned, we will probably be looking at selling our remaining bonds by February of 23. We have a new school building at this campus, junior senior high school campus, as the next high priority project. And after completing the summer projects, that building comes with a very high price tag because it's a brand new building. In looking at applying for state funding, we must make sure we are also doing our due diligence as a district to procure funding at the district and our side of things. The state always looks at that when we do apply for other funds. State wants to make sure we're obtaining any financing we can to secure funding for our projects before they approve our funding applications. So something to keep in mind as we move forward through the construction projects. And then last I want to mention is we have about 100 Chromebooks that we are going to send over to Up Valley Family Center to distribute to families in the community. These are excess Chromebooks for us. We can no longer update them with the instructional applications that we have. They're older, they still work. And so 100 of those will go over to Up Family, and then they can be distributed for free to families that might want to have an extra Chromebook in their house. And I want to thank Marcela Rodriguez and Larry Black, our network manager. They've been working really hard together to make this happen, so it's been great. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you, Maureen. Any questions or comments? Just want to say that it's interesting that whenever I used to go to CSBA conferences, I always feel very fortunate that we were in a basic ed district, but that is changing now. And my question for you, and it's probably something that we can talk about later, but is it for school basic ed districts to move from one status to another one? Is that I don't know if it's something that
Likely to go from a basic aid district back to an LCFF district,
Right.
by all means, yes. We probably won't do that for many years to come because we do have such an excess above our state aid. But yes, I worked in a district where we fluctuated back and forth for a few years.
I'm aware of the implications. I'm sorry, I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, we're safe for quite a while. At least until I retire.
Thank you. That's a very interesting thing. So, all right. Thank you. Superintendent.
Well, first I was going to ask Shannon, you do not have to stay here. Shannon's here after the school year is over, so you are welcome to go, Shannon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good job.
Both Raul and Chris mentioned in the reports, we just completed a school year that was quite unlike. It was certainly to the benefit of students, I think, feedback, obviously, but the unique demands of educating kids in a COVID environment were nothing but the ends expected. So the principals and district management team assumed additional duties, as you've heard all year long, that none of them had been trained for. However, they did it, I felt, with dedication and no complaining that I ever heard. So thank you for all the work. I'm sure it's behind somewhere else, but I never heard it. So. And although we prioritized health and safety for our staff, for our students, I feel that our entire staff stayed focused on learning for students. So I'm incredibly grateful for staff throughout the entire district. That's all we call. Then under LCAP Goal 2, it's always so gratifying at the end of the year to get to see our families and our students recognize our graduates and our promoters. And I was so impressed at all 3 ceremonies with just how respectful our students always are. It's amazing. And although it was very hot at the high school graduation, I also appreciate the time for our facilities staff and Chris that, yeah, it was hot, it was miserable, and for 3 days they set up and broke down in that. So I appreciate that. And I will admit I had some melancholy moments at each of the ceremonies, but I think that the hardest was when I received my own diploma at the high school ceremony. So, Raul, thank you for making my last graduation so memorable. Then under LCAP goal number 3, I'm very excited that we had 56 parents who completed the cohort for PK this year. That's an incredible amount of parents who dedicated 8 weeks of their time in the evenings to participate. And they didn't just attend, they participated in the seminars. So Monica Garibay is going to be scheduling for the fall. We're going to do one of the seminar series early next year and then one later in the spring. And that was at the suggestion of our PK leadership parents. They felt that we need to do it at both ends of the school year, which I think is a great suggestion. This time it's going to be parent engagement rather than the SEL. So they might bring back SEL in the future, but they felt that they wanted to re-engage parents again in this particular seminar that we've done before. And that again is going to be supported by the Cal Foundation grant for healthcare. And then as Maureen mentioned, the district's going to need some additional funding to complete the projects that we've identified in our master facilities plan. And we've been talking to Greg Isom the last few weeks, and I've actually invited him to come to our next board meeting. And I think he needs to present some financing options to you. And he's also going to talk to you about this possibility of administering a survey to our community, just to see whether or not they're willing to support another bond measure, or what their sensitivity is to increased taxes right now. So he'll come and do a short presentation at the next meeting. And then I want to let you know that Audra and I are going to be spending our last transition day together on Wednesday this week. Highlights of our day are including, she's going to attend the Calistoga Schools initiative meeting, the steering committee meeting, which I appreciate. We're going to be interviewing the final candidates for the vice principal position for the elementary school. And we're meeting with the city manager, we're visiting the state preschool, and we're visiting the Boys and Girls Club, so I'm going to be researching the staff there. So it's been a pleasure to get to meet with her for 3 full days, and looking forward to the 4th. And I told her that I'm available after that, anytime she needs me as far as questions. That I thought more questions rather than email. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Clear? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless any member of the board, the audience, or staff requests the specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. So, do we have any? No? Okay, at least. Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Is that Jeff? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And this is a roll call. President Lopez Jones? Yes. Clerk Robert Allen?
Aye.
Trustee Marcio?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Aye.
Trustee Alquiche? Thank you. Moving on to action items. The protocol for action items includes a staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During public input, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person. And the first action item is 12.2, agreements with the Valley Family Center. Maureen?
We typically put the Up Valley Family Center MOU under consent because it stayed pretty consistent from year to year as far as the services and the costs associated with that. However, this year, as you heard Jenny mention, and also Maureen, she's reviewing the budget, there's a significant increase in the cost of the services because we're adding so many services for our students. So we felt it was best, to be transparent that this is an increase. Much of it's grant funded, of course, but it does increase the contract between the district and Up Valley. And then also, we're doing some things a little bit differently. In the past, we have brought the data sharing agreement separately, and then also the MOU. We've combined them within this one action item. So there's actually 2 agreements that you're approving in this one action item. Any questions? I'm very excited about the services that are coming to the district next year, and about our continued partnership with them.
And for this, I'm going to abstain because, as you know, the Valley Family Centers is my board. So I can entertain a motion.
So moved.
If there's no questions, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Second.
Those in favor? Okay, abstain. Perfect, thank you. Item 12.3, AG completion improvement grant.
Before I go, could we excuse our principals? Had a long year, and I think they're ready to go.
Enjoy your break.
Okay, the A to G grant is a grant focused on improving A to G eligibility for our foster youth, our low-income students, and our English learners. I think something important to keep in mind about this is that it supports our current programs. It's not intended to create new programs. So this is our proposal is to focus on increasing tutoring opportunities, including credit recovery, expanding college and career experiences, including summer A to G and intercession A to G learning opportunities, support advanced placement test costs, professional development for staff, additional staff to train AP training, and potentially training on Common Core, ELD, or guided instruction, to provide rigorous Common Core instruction, as well as Common Core related tutoring support. So this is our proposal for the A to G completion grant.
So just a question for you, on the tutoring, what is the plan with that? Is that for, are we bringing more tutors or?
Yeah, it's to make our current tutoring program more robust, to serve more students, especially when it comes to A to G completion.
Okay, so any questions? All those in favor? Aye. All right. 12.4, College Preparatory Mathematics Educational Program.
This is a request to approve the adoption of the CPM math curriculum for integrated math 1, 2, and 3. This is what we referenced during the math presentation, curriculum that was piloted by our math department and recommended by our math department as well for approval.
Okay, any questions on that? All right.
Second.
12.5, declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
So this is an authorization which allows us to authorize teachers to teach outside their credentialed areas in certain circumstances. This is actually something you approved at our last meeting. The state has created a new format this year. We submitted what you approved, and the county is requesting that we add the specific bilingual authorization, which is Spanish. It's not something that's been on a previous form, so a little bit of a learning process for us all. So just as a matter of process, we are bringing it back to you for approval, again, with a revision. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 12.6, textbook adoption, science for grades TK to 5th.
So back in 2020, our grades 6 to 8 teachers adopted the Carolina or Carolina Smithsonian Science Curriculum. Our grades TK or K5 did not adopt at that time. I think they were playing wait and see at that, and it probably was a good decision given that it was really, really hard to implement authentic NGSS curriculum during distance learning. But coming out of distance learning, going back to that conversation, the team has agreed that they would like to follow suit and implement the same curriculum that's being implemented in 6-8, which is great because it means we've got the same curriculum TK all the way through 8. So this is the recommendation to expand that adoption to apply to grades TK5.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
12.7, resolution 21/2013, authorization to sign on behalf of the board of trustees.
This is a resolution you actually have to approve every year. However, this year's different, and it's removing myself from it and adding Audrey.
I move we approve the resolution.
Thank you, Rudy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, the same line, 12.8, resolution 21/2214, bank signatories.
And the same is true with this one. This is a resolution that you see every year as well.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, and this is a roll call. All right, so Representative Lopez Rose, aye. Red Robert Allen. Aye. Trustee Maxiel.
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Aye.
Trustee Alquiche. 12.9, resolution 21/2215, authorizing end of year transfers 2020 and 2021.
This is the last of the annual signatures and resolutions that you have to approve.
All right. Motion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this is also roll call. President Lopez Jones. Aye. Treasurer Allen.
Aye.
Trustee Maxfield.
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Aye.
Trustee Alquiche. 12.10, resolution 21/2216, governing board member elections.
So as you are aware, the seats for Jeff and Indira are open, and so this is a resolution you have to pass, which basically says the election is going to take place on November 8th.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. 12.11, agreement with missing painting. Chris?
So this is a proposal from Nissa Painting to take care of the interior paint and patch job inside the district office.
Great. Any questions? That's the first question. What color?
She said one color.
Same color as inside now. But we're gonna have to match it because I don't have that actual color, so he's gonna be here tomorrow to use some of their swatches to nail it down for us.
I move that we approve Eastern Painting contract.
Okay, and all those in favor? Thank you. All right, 12.12, agreement with Central Valley Environment.
This is part of the art docent, the old building at the elementary school where the art docent supplies are, as well as the normal school supplies. As part of that project, where I don't know if you've been in there, but the floor has got an old mastic, basically glue from the flooring from before. And given its age, we want to have it removed and contained versus just scraping it off. So this company's going to come in, and the process is actually a pressure washer system. Your home pressure washer, 3,000 psi. This one's 40,000 psi, and it immediately knocks it off and then sucks it into a containment unit. So it's a pretty interesting process. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But this is our proposal to do it.
Make a motion to approve the contract.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. 12.13, agreement with MAS.net.
This is the agreement referred to that Larry really took care of for us, making sure that they were doing exactly what our district's future plans were. Cynthia got it on the agenda just in time to get it tonight so that we can get going. We were at the last minute trying to get it squared away because we need to get it ordered, get the parts ordered, and get it scheduled so we can be done before the end of the year or before the end of the summer.
Great, thank you.
Second.
We had a fun summer.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 12.14, board policies and administrative regulations.
So I'm presenting these BPs for the second time. They were first read last time. You had no suggested revisions. So presented as they were first. You'll be happy to know there will be none on the June 20th board meeting.
You showed me.
None again until August.
I move that we approve the board policies and regulations.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that brings us to closing items. 13.1, board member meeting calendar. So we're meeting on June 20, and we're taking a break until August. And then 13.2, tentative future agenda items.
Some may or may not know, but I'll be resigning from the board effective July 1st. So I think you want to put on the board agenda the appointment process so that you guys can explain it to the board members and how we're going to move forward with that.
No idea how sad I am at this moment. This moment.
So the process for a trustee to resign is that trustee Elfishin would need to submit a letter to the county superintendent of schools, and then a copy would go to you as well. She's notifying you tonight. That's part of the board policy. And then I can come back at the June 20th meeting with the options for you as a board about how you want to proceed, whether or not you want to appoint or move forward with a special election. The information for you recommended.
letting us know, Julie, and just know that you're very much appreciated. I think we've been with the board for a long, long time, just like Jeff and I, and we have the pleasure to work with you, and just always can work with you.
I make it really wild.
We know you. Thank you. Okay, there is no need to reconvene to closed session. And I'll wait for Jeff's favorite motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.